Republican Congressman Greg Walden is chairing the majority transition team. Hey, Congressman, congratulations to you and your team. You've got a big job, though. You've got a Tea Party challenge. Michelle Bachmann going for that fourth leadership post. How are you going to handle that?
You know, that's up to the conference to decide. Jeb Hensarling, he is a very strong member of our conference as well as Michelle. And, you know, we'll work it out. That's what elections are all about, and it's an internal matter. And I think what you're going to see, though, is we all stood for election. Whether you were a Tea Party member, whether you were out there in front in that organization or not, we were all on the ballot. We were all in the same atmosphere. We came here victorious, and we're going to work together to move the agenda forward that we ran on, which was our pledge to America, to finish out this agenda, get people back to work, and cut deficit spending. And I don't think there's really much difference in our conference on that agenda. I think we're all united on it, and that's what American people want. There's, you know, we'll figure this thing out. But what our focus has to be is keeping our word, showing that we listen to the American people, and that our first and primary focus is jobs, 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 and cutting the deficit and repealing or replacing some of these policies that led to the shellacking that the president received in this election, or his party did.
Well, Jeb Hensarling from Texas has put out some guidance that he actually has a more conservative record if you go point by point than Michelle Bachmann. But she could argue that the Tea Party created the enthusiasm that was the tide that lifted all boats, if you will, on the Republican side. And that not only they have Tea Party members, new members coming in, but that they contributed to a lot of narrow Republican victories.
Well, and I think they did. There's no doubt about it.
So don't they deserve a leadership position, a seat at the table?
You know, I think the question they would have is, do we have people in place in the leadership in the Republican Party that reflect their values and views, and that are going to move a conservative agenda forward to cut the wasteful Washington spending and to focus on primary issue number one, which is jobs in the economy. And I think you've got that in both Jeb Hensarling and certainly Michelle Bachmann. You've got that in Eric Cantor. You've got that in the whole team moving forward. And our conference will make those decisions, and, you know, we'll work this thing out.
Let me share with you a tweet that came in just minutes ago from Nancy Pelosi. She said, driven by the urgency of creating jobs and protecting health care reform and Wall Street reform, Social Security and Medicare, I am running for Democratic leader. So she is not following the precedent that some have followed, Speaker Hastert among others. She's not stepping down.
Well, and understand that her conference has just become much more liberal than it was when she was elected the first time. So I've said for a long time, actually, the interesting outcome of this election is she and her philosophy would be strengthened, because the seats we pick up are not going to be in the most liberal districts. They're going to be in the more conservative and moderate districts, and indeed that's what the election showed. We picked up 16 more seats in suburbia that we'd lost since the '06 election. And so in some ways I'm a little surprised. In other ways, I think what you see is a movement forward for her philosophy, which is obviously different than mine, but certainly is still the hardcore center of the Democrats in the Congress, in the House. And so I'm intrigued by that. I think that will now eclipse the story that you've been focused on between Jeb and Michelle in terms of political intrigue in Washington.
Let's talk about some substance. How about that? A couple of big issues coming up. Let me tick them off for you. Hilda Solis, the Labor Secretary, just said extension of unemployment benefits critical for the Democratic side. The president signaled yesterday through Robert Gibbs willing to compromise on extending all the Bush tax cuts. And the others are health care repeal. Dick Armey says that is not negotiable from the Tea Party advocates. What else is there? Debt ceiling. So how do you think your caucus is going to vote on the debt ceiling, the extension of unemployment compensation, and not health care reform, but Dick Armey's demand that it be repealed?
Well, let me try and work through these one at a time, and keep in perspective, we don't control the agenda yet. We don't have any of the levers of power. They still reside with Speaker Nancy Pelosi in the House, because they're in charge until the new Congress is sworn in January. So just at the outset, we don't set the agenda. We don't know how the bills are going to come to the floor, how they're going to be configured. Obviously, Andrea, you know, we ran on a much different platform, and that was, let's create jobs in the private sector. Let's give certainty back to the marketplace. place. Let's extend all of the tax cuts. Let's cut deficit spending. And we've supported extensions on unemployment, I have at least. And I think we have a sympathy for those who are out of work. The question is how you pay for it. We had an alternative to pay for it of existing funds, and it wouldn't allow us to really move that forward the last time. The real issue here is let's get certainty in the marketplace and grow private sector jobs. While these are encouraging data that came out today, the concern I have, and it was expressed, I think, by Aaron, whom you interviewed, is that on the current path, it would still take a decade to get back to the unemployment levels that we saw just a few years ago. I don't think that's good enough for Americans. It's not good enough for Oregonians. My district, I've got unemployment in at least half a dozen counties, more than 15%. I mean, it is awful. And so I think we all have to come to the table, lay down the partisan swords and say, how do we do job one? How do we get the economy going? What is the best thing we can do? I was a small business owner with my wife for 22 years. We were in the radio business in Oregon. And so I understand how you grow jobs in a bad economy and a good economy, and how important it is to get small business growing jobs all across America. That's how we'll get this thing turned around. That should be our focus.
Thank you, Congressman. Have a great weekend.
Thanks,
See you
Andrea.
next
Good
week,
to be
I
with
hope.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.